Siena Thompson, a simple meatpacking worker, gave her last bit of change to a hungry street child. When Siena was having her worst day 12 years later, a millionaire knocked on her door, and what she'd done was covered in newspapers all over the world. The routine was the same every time. The clock struck 5 o'clock in the afternoon, signaling the end of the day shifts for dozens of workers at a meatpacking plant in Chicago. Siena was one of those employees who ran down the same street after work to catch the subway back home. Because the work was so demanding, she was exhausted at times. On that day, the slaughterhouse received a large shipment of pork. Despite having power tools to help her with the cutting, Siena had to carry and move a large amount of meat from one side to the other. Her arms trembled from exertion, but the job was eventually completed. On days like this, Siena would take the subway home and sleep for most of the ride. Siena's coworkers, who live in the same neighborhood, were on hand to wake her up so she wouldn't miss her stop. However, she was left alone in the wagon on this particular day. If she slept, she risked waking up only 1 or 2 stops away, potentially resulting in a 40-minute wait before she could finally sleep, which was a bad idea. Worrying didn't help matters because Siena dozed off in the subway. However, a man's deep and gentle voice jolted her awake. "Lady, your stop is coming up, isn't it?" Siena opened her eyes, puzzled by what was going on. "It's your stop next, isn't it?" the man asked, lightly touching her shoulder. He apologized for startling her. "I had to say something so you wouldn't miss the stop." He was a well-educated, well-dressed man in his 30s. He spoke to her as if he didn't want to appear malicious. After thanking him, Siena inquired how he knew where she needed to alight. Siena was usually with her coworkers, so he never had to wake her up. But today was different. She was alone, and he didn't want her to miss her stop. As they exited the train together, he introduced himself as Howard. They began talking as they walked down the street together. Siena lived a long way away from Howard. He decided to wait with her at the bus stop because she still had to catch a bus before getting home. The conversation moved along smoothly. They quickly discovered that they shared similar tastes, worked in the same area, and even had mutual friends. "How come we've never seen each other before?" Siena inquired. "Actually, I did notice you on the subway," he admitted awkwardly. The bus arrived, and Howard bid her farewell, but not before they agreed to return together the next day, now that they'd met. They met 5 times in 1 week, each meeting feeling easier and more natural than the previous. Within 3 weeks, they were dating. Their relationship was so solid and beautiful that Howard got down on one knee, opened a case holding a sparkling ring, and asked Siena to marry him in less than a year. Siena was absolutely thrilled. She had dreamed about this moment for years, and now she was living the dream. She agreed, and 3 months later, they were standing at the altar sealing their vows. Howard and Siena moved in together and went about their daily lives. He worked as a programmer for a startup company. Siena continued to work her stressful job as a meat packer, but her life has become much more exciting since she met her husband. Howard made her dinner and massaged her back and arms when she arrived home exhausted. Life wasn't perfect, but it was as good as she could have imagined. Siena thought she had won the lottery when she looked at the man sleeping next to her. This feeling was only heightened a few years later when a pregnancy test revealed that a new member was joining their family. It was the longest 9 months of the couple's lives. Ashley was the name given to the baby girl when she was born. Howard was able to move his vacation up by 20 days so that he wouldn't have to leave his wife and daughter during her first few days of life. For them, holding Ashley was like holding a piece of heaven. She was a beautiful, healthy girl who had come to brighten her parents' days even more. Ashley was growing and developing normally, but Howard began to experience headaches and chest pains. They suspected stress, but the pain persisted even after a month-long family vacation. Siena wanted her husband to go see a doctor because she was worried about a vascular or heart problem, but Howard thought he was too young for that. "Probably something I ate, too much salt in the food or something. Just in case, I'm going to start hiking, okay?" he said. The pain went away when he started doing light runs at the end of the day. Howard could then go up to 3 or 4 days without feeling anything, but it was only a matter of time before it caught him off guard again. Perhaps he'd be playing with Ashley or simply watching television when he felt a sharp twinge in his chest. "Howard, I'm concerned. You need to go see a doctor," Siena yelled at him, nervously. But Howard chalked it up to dehydration and began to hydrate more. "If the pain continues, I'll see a cardiologist," he says. 2 weeks later, when Howard awoke from his bed on a Saturday morning, he felt extreme dizziness and pain in his chest, causing him to fall back down while letting out a scream that startled Siena and Ashley, who was in the living room. Howard was in pain, clutching his chest and unable to speak. Siena immediately called an ambulance. The doctors informed Siena at the hospital that Howard was in the early stages of a heart attack and would continue monitoring him because they did not believe the danger was over. His blood pressure was out of control and he was unconscious. Howard's status had not changed in hours. "Mommy, where's Daddy? Is he sick?" Ashley inquired. "It's nothing, my love. He'll be back soon, you'll see. How about we go to the park for some ice cream when he gets out?" Her mother comforted her young daughter. Siena had no idea what would happen, but she believed Howard was too young and healthy to have heart problems. She could only hope that he would feel better soon and that the doctors would find the source of his discomfort. 2 hours later, there was an emergency at the hospital. Nurses and even the doctor attending to Howard's case rushed down the hall. Siena's heart nearly jumped out of her mouth, but she didn't want to worry Ashley. It had been the scariest 30 minutes of her life. She kept her gaze fixed on the corridor, hoping for good news. Siena's world fell apart when the doctor arrived. The medical team had tried in vain to resuscitate him. Howard died from a second, far more severe heart attack than the first. "I am sorry," the doctor said. "Let's prepare the body now," he said. Those words echoed in Siena's head like a nightmare. She didn't want to believe it, but she also wanted to scream. She had no choice but to bend down and hug her daughter tightly. "Mommy, is Daddy not well?" Ashley inquired. The woman was at a loss for words because she couldn't believe what had just happened. So she just cried until the tears soaked the child's clothes. Ashley must have been affected by what happened because she cried as well. Siena kept her spirits up after Howard died. She and Ashley missed Howard, but she knew she had to be strong and keep everything under control. Siena began working longer hours at the refrigeration plant to meet her responsibilities. Her coworkers were aware that she was going through some difficulties, and they admired her tenacity. Siena was determined that her daughter would not lack anything. On the other hand, the extra 2 or 3 hours of work each day was exhausting, and the reward was hardly worth it, primarily because it reduced the amount of time she could spend with Ashley. Despite the extra hours she was given, it almost didn't make up for the time she lost with her daughter. But Siena was powerless to intervene. She hoped for a raise or a promotion, but neither had happened yet. On her way into the subway to work one morning, a thin, pale girl ran into Siena. She appeared ill and terrified. "I apologize, ma'am. I haven't eaten since yesterday. Could you please give me some change?" said the child. She spoke quickly and softly, most likely because she was embarrassed by what she was doing. Siena looked around for the girl's mother or father, but she appeared to be alone. Everyone in the carriage went about their business, completely oblivious to the starving child in front of them. She watched the girl as she rests her arms on her stomach. "Poor thing," Siena thought. "You must be in terrible pain from being so hungry." It was impossible not to notice the girl and imagine that it was her own daughter in that situation. Siena opened her wallet to find $30 and a few coins. She handed over the $30 and the 2 sandwiches she had brought from home to eat during her breaks. She could go hungry that day because she would eat later at home, but that child didn't have anything. The embarrassed young lady approached and took the money and snacks. She looked at Siena with tears in her eyes and sighed a heartfelt thank you. "I'll pay you, okay? I promise," said the little one as she exited the subway. Siena worked hard that day despite her hunger. She could have gone to the canteen and bought a snack, but she had given the child all her money. Her remaining change would cover the cost of her return home. Even though she was exhausted and hungry, she had no regrets about her actions. In fact, she spent the rest of the day hoping that everything had gone well with the girl. Fanny, the child she met on the subway, had a difficult home life. Her parents struggled with drugs and alcohol and spent most of the day oblivious to the fact that they had a child at home. But the little girl imagined a better life for herself. She didn't know how she'd get there, but she knew it was doable, and it was. Siena was still working at the meatpacking plant after 12 years, but she had been promoted twice. She now had a little more money and arrived home a little earlier. Ashley had a pair of roller skates and would ride them around the neighborhood with her school friends every afternoon. She jumped and zigzagged on her wheels that day, riding over ramps and railings. She was gifted. But she decided to race another classmate and ended up tripping on a crack in the asphalt, landing hard on her head and back. Ashley's friends rushed over to check on her. She was lying down, responding but unable to get up. Some witnesses called an ambulance and her mother was notified. Siena was at work when she was called to the hospital. She whizzed past the front desk like a lightning bolt, practically commanding the attendants to inform her of Ashley's condition. "Please calm down, ma'am. The girl is not in danger of dying, but the doctor is on his way and will tell you everything," a nurse explained. "Tell me everything? What exactly?" Siena yelled, fearing the worst. The doctor didn't take long to arrive. Siena was terrified of doctors and hospitals after what happened to Howard. The doctor summoned the distraught mother to his office and patiently explained that Ashley would be fine, but that she had severely injured her spine by striking her head and back on the floor. As a result, it was highly likely that the girl would no longer be able to walk. Siena sobbed uncontrollably. She couldn't believe what was happening. "I must be cursed," she exclaimed. "Calm down, ma'am. All is not lost. There are excellent surgeons in the city who specialize in this type of spine reconstruction. Ashley might walk again. The problem is that these treatments are expensive. In some cases, they exceed 6 figures," said the doctor. Siena couldn't afford such an outlay, even if she sold everything she owned. "If I sell the apartment, we'll be homeless and still won't have enough to pay for a surgery like that," she explained. The doctor looked down at the ground, knowing that what she said was, sadly, true. It was almost a month before Ashley was discharged from the hospital. She had to use a wheelchair to get around and accept that she had become physically disabled. Just to stabilize her health, the hospital bill had been very high. This debt reduced Siena's ability to pay for more advanced care for her daughter. It had taken her years to save everything she could to keep up with the bills, continue to provide primary care for her daughter, and pay off the hospital's debt. While Siena made sacrifices, Ashley grew up in a wheelchair, becoming a more beautiful young lady. When the girl's mother saw how sad she was, it broke her heart, so she launched an online fundraising campaign. The money would all go towards Ashley's corrective surgery. Even though it was a cause that people were talking about on social networks, very few people actually donated enough to pay for everything that was needed. The money raised allowed some tests to be done, but no surgery. Siena thought it was over and that nothing else could be done. The future of her daughter was indeed sealed. She sometimes cried in the bathroom at work whenever she thought of how many opportunities her daughter would miss because of that misfortune. She didn't know it yet, but one of her good deeds from the past was about to catch up to her. Someone knocked on her door on August 15, 2019, after all hope had been lost. When Siena opened it, she saw a young woman who was very well dressed and attractive. A luxury car was parked in the driveway behind her. "Hello, I'm sure you won't recognize me, but I promised you something a while back," said the enigmatic young lady. She then took out her wallet, which held $30. She took out the notes and handed them to Siena. Siena realized everything at that point. She looked at the young woman in the eyes, and the embarrassed expression from years before had vanished. That hungry, pale, and skinny 10-year-old had grown into a beautiful and healthy young woman in her 30s. Siena hugged her before inviting her inside. The woman introduced herself as Fanny, but Siena never forgot. She said she'd never forget how the snacks and money she got on the subway that day saved her life. Ashley entered the room in her wheelchair at that moment, and Fanny's gaze was drawn to her. Fanny stated that she had experienced good fortune. She had been homeless and hungry, but now she was a successful young business owner. Siena was relieved to see that the girl's situation had improved. "You must be blessed. You sure have all the light in the world," Siena said to Fanny. Fanny thanked her and remembered the promise she had made years before. She explained that she had found Siena through the Ashley fundraiser. "I recognized you as soon as I saw your picture, so I decided to come here myself to thank you for helping me when I needed it the most," Fanny explained. "The $30 you gave me at that time saved my life, so I'd like to support you and your daughter right now." When Siena heard this, she thanked her and told her that any help was appreciated, but that the surgery would cost $250,000 and that they would most likely need more donations even if the campaign ran for years. "I'm sorry if I wasn't clear," Fanny said as she took Siena's hands in hers. "You won't need any more donations." Siena was dazed for a few seconds before breaking down in tears. Her daughter had been in a wheelchair for so long that she had forgotten what it was like to walk and run, but the young woman yearned to be able to do it all over again. Ashley remained silent as she processed the information. Did that young lady really have that much money to give a stranger? Fanny spent the rest of the day with them, listening to their stories and making sure neither mother nor daughter gave up hope. A few weeks after, Fanny started paying for all of Ashley's tests and treatments. Her surgery was successful and was performed at a specialty center in Chicago. The case was covered by several television networks, and the girl's recovery was closely monitored. All of Ashley's physical therapy was excruciatingly painful, but it prepared her body to be back on her feet. Ashley walked on her own for the first time in years. She still needed assistance, but it was only a matter of time before she could walk on her own again. Fanny held Siena's hands while she sobbed in disbelief at what was happening. "It's a miracle, my God," she exclaimed, delighted. Ashley was walking without assistance and with surprising ease for someone who had been in a wheelchair for so long after 9 months. She walked with assurance and purpose. Siena had no idea that a simple action from the past would restore her daughter's life to normalcy. Sometimes, Siena remembered Howard and imagined that he, too, was witnessing everything. If you like this story, I ask you to please leave a like, and this other video appearing on the screen will probably move you as well. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.